Good morning, everybody. Continued good morning. My name is Santiago Ibarra, and I am the Director of Admission. So I want to just give my own congratulations to all the students and parents here today. You are here for our one of our academic panels, and we have three amazing faculty members. Three I kind of know, so you're getting a lot of wealth of information here. And they're actually also pretty hysterical. I've been on panels with them before. I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves. You'll live up to it, trust me. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, what field they teach in, and maybe some current research interests that they're doing. Professor Zuckerman, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hello. Welcome. Good to see you all. Excited you're here. Congrats. Wow. With three kids of my own. One went to McAllister. One went to Cornish College of the Arts. The other is 16 and just about to embark on the hell of 11th grade. But so I know what you've been through, and you should be proud of yourselves that you're just sitting right here. And so it's wonderful. Okay. My areas are sociology and secular studies. And I teach classes in social theory, sociology of religion, sociology of secularity. I even teach a class called Deviant Sex Cults. Very popular. And although right now I'm administrating, so I'm not teaching as much currently, but I will be again. And my current research right now is on secularization, the weakening of religion in society over time. And I specifically am looking at societies where that is happening radically and dramatically. And so that's what I'm working on. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Is it on? It's on. Hello? Maybe use a different. Hi. Is that better? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pitzer. It's good to be here spending Saturday with you all. My name is Barbara Junispy, and I am in the Organizational Studies field group, and then just recently was the Justice Education field group, and we're working on establishing a major. I've been here since fall of 2016, and I teach one of the introductory courses to organizational studies, which is called Org Theory, which is my favorite class. And I also get to teach a class in my area of study. So I study authoritarianism in the former Soviet Union. I teach a class called Authoritarian Institutions, and that's also really fun. We get to look at authoritarianism through literature and popular culture in different countries. My current research, so I'm just starting a collaborative study with a professor from the University of Redlands and one of our formerly incarcerated students who received a BA just this January. And we are doing an investigation of faculty experiences teaching in the Inside Out Prison Exchange program, where half of the students are Claremont College's students and half of the students are incarcerated students at the California Rehabilitation Center in Norco. And I just had class there on Friday. And then I have two other projects. One of them is a study of university students and political values in Kazakhstan, depending on what university they go to, because there's a lot of international universities there. And my third research project is also on Kazakhstan. It is about the attempted coup that happened in January, and the role of the first president, the leader of the nation, Nursultan Nazarbayev's family in that series of events. Again, I'm so happy to be here with you all, and I'll stop there.
Hello, I am Brian Keeley, and I've been here since the year 2000, so I'll let you do the math on that. So one of the values at Pitzer is, in terms of our academics, is interdisciplinarity, and I seem to embody that. So I'm technically in the philosophy program, but I also teach in the neuroscience program, the science, technology, and society program, have occasionally taught for secular studies as well. And we just have a brand new field group and major in cognitive science. And so the stuff I mainly teach on are things at the intersection between mind and brain. So I teach in the Foundations of Neuroscience class every year, which is a requirement for the neuroscience major. I teach a module on history and philosophy of neuroscience. I also teach a more upper division course on neurophilosophy, the intersection of neuroscience and philosophy. One of my more popular courses is a course called Knowledge, Mind, and Existence, which is a requirement for the philosophy major, and also a lot of students take it for their cognitive science major that looks at the metaphysics and epistemology of mind and other things. What else do I do? I've been teaching first-year seminars. I was director of the first-year seminar program a couple of years ago, and still enjoy teaching in that program as well. And also teaching things like philosophy of science and things like that. In terms of my research, I tend to have two different prongs which don't have a lot of overlap with each other. On the one hand, there is this philosophy of neuroscience stuff that I do that mostly revolves around unusual sensory systems. Like we have vision, so we understand the neuroscience of vision, and there are a lot of challenges to trying to figure that out. But what about senses that we don't have? So I used to work on electric fish, which are animals that perceive the world via electricity. They generate a little electrical fields and then perceive differences to that field. We'll also look at things like magnetoreception and echolocation and lots of senses that we as humans don't have or have in a different sort of way, and try to figure out like, how do you study something like that we don't have. And also interested in some of the technology that's involving things like giving ourselves back senses. So things like the cochlear implant, and there are people working on an artificial retina, and also people that are interested in developing new senses. Like, we don't typically have a magnetic sense, but, we could give ourselves a magnetic sense with the right kind of technology. So looking at that sort of stuff. And then the second area is something that a paper I wrote 20 years ago before I even got to Pitzer that turned out to be a topic that not many people were interested in then, but turned into a kind of a big topic. It's the weird epistemology of conspiracy theories. So I spend, when I'm not thinking about, how to give humans back magnetoreception, I'm learning what I can about the crazy things that Alex Jones is saying, and David Icke and his lizard people. It's an interesting epistemology. It's the only area of epistemology I know where evidence against the theory is actually taken as evidence for the theory, because that's how much they don't want you to know. So, but between those two, those are occupy most of my research time. And thank you, and welcome to Pitzer.
So for the audience, we will be opening it up to questions, but I'm going to go ahead and get us started. And I think something we get asked a lot in the admission office is research opportunities outside of STEM. So can you speak to research that you've done either with students, mentoring them, or as your research assistants?
So I guess I can start that. So we do have research opportunities in the humanities, which is where I spend a lot of my time. And there have been a couple of different summers. It's usually during the summertime is when I get most of my research done. And on more than one occasion, I've had research assistants who would work with me either on manuscripts that I was working on, trying to figure out an intersection between my interest and their interest, and let's dig in more deeply on a particular topic that I'm working on, and have them go and do some research of their own, and then report back to me what they've discovered, and we can have a good conversation during the summer. That was particularly valuable during the COVID times, where we were having to meet via Zoom and whatnot, and but there was a lot of, particularly in philosophy, you spend a lot of time going and reading stuff and then trying to summarize it and kind of think through it, and that was something that was fairly easy to do on Zoom, because you could go get a copy of the book or get a copy of the electronic paper and read it and start engaging with those ideas. So I think that's the main sort of thing I've done, is kind of working with students on philosophy projects over the summer, and continue to do that with most summers.
So I've had different kinds of experiences. Sometimes students will do an independent study where they can get a credit for helping me with my research. And in the summertime, one summer I had 3 research assistants, and they got a small stipend, and they worked with me for 8 weeks. And in that particular project, I was finishing up my book manuscript. So I asked them they had taken many classes with me, and so they knew the process of peer review that I use for students in class, and they returned that on me and peer reviewed my chapters. And we met every week and we talked about things they didn't understand, because my goal was to have my argument and my book appeal to a wide audience. So that was really helpful. And that book is currently under review. I'm waiting to get the first round of approval from the board. So hopefully that will be forthcoming on Monday. And then the other thing that I'm doing, so I mentioned that I'm currently I'm a co-principal investigator with a faculty member at a different university and a former student. We started this project last semester while he was a student as part of the cohort of BA pathway program for incarcerated students. He wants to get a PhD, and so in political science, which is my field. So I invited him to work on this project with me. In that project, we did the literature review together, met every week. We also designed the methodology and the questions that we want to ask faculty. We are starting this weekend. I'm going to send the invitation out to faculty. So we're just in the data collection phase. Currently, he has a stipend to help me with that project. Yeah, I think those are the most recent experiences with research that I've worked with students on. Well, you don't need that.
Yeah, I think I'll go like this. Okay. Off the top of my head, as my coffee is kicking in, yeah, I mean, to me, the relationships that I do build with my students here at Pitzer is probably the best part of the job. And I'll talk about research, but just to give you an example, I have officiated weddings of former students. I had students who babysat my children, and then my children babysat their children. So I have great connections with former students in a way that I went to the University of Oregon. First, I went to Santa Monica City College, yay, and then I transferred to the University of Oregon. So I was always at big public universities or public colleges. I didn't understand the dynamics of a small liberal arts college. And when I got here, there was a period of, oh my gosh, what's going on? And learning how close I could work with my students, how the relationships we could develop, academic and otherwise, has been so amazing. And to me, that is the best part of this place, is that your student will develop, have the ability or the possibility to really get to know their professors. And so also not just weddings, but also research-wise. So just off the top of my head, I did a survey. It's kind of obscure, but I'm interested in Scandinavia. I did a survey of Danish kids who are not going through the ritual of confirmation anymore. And I had a student at Pitzer help me analyze that survey, and we published it in a peer-reviewed journal. And there's that undergrad student publishing in a peer-reviewed journal. I also, we have something called Scholar in Residence. So every year, one faculty member applies and is chosen to, it's usually in the spring, I believe, and they are relieved of all committee work and all classes, and they just teach a seminar based on their own research. So they have a small group of students who are interested in the topic, hopefully, and they work with the professor to do the research, and they get to work and see, like Barbara said, like, how do you do a lit review? How do you incorporate methods into your process? How do you lay it all out? So when I was Scholar in Residence, my students helped me write a peer-reviewed article, and they did in-depth interviews that went towards the publication of one of my books. So the peer-reviewed article and my book. What else was I happy about? I used to be publishing a lot on W.E.B. Du Bois. I edited 2 volumes of his work, and I had several students working very closely with me, helping me find his writings, helping me analyze those writings, and all kinds of stuff. And their names are right there in the book along with mine. And then just recently, I don't know, I attended there's a Society for the Scientific Study of Religion is a national academic, what do you call those? Societies. And we meet annually and we publish journals. And it's a mix of social scientists who study religion. And I have a student who's a senior. And this student came to me a few months ago and said, gosh, I want to go to grad school, but I don't know if I should do sociology or religious studies. And I said, great, come to the meeting in Portland at the Society for the Scientific Study of Religion, and I'll introduce you to all kinds of people. Some are sociologists, some are religious studies folks, and you can hear their experiences and you can talk to other grad students. So I was able to get funding for this student to go to Portland, and I think it really helped. And just to have that kind of mentorship dynamic and that ability, it's so wonderful. And it was so great for me. I felt so much pride introducing this senior to my colleagues. This is amazing senior. They're doing their work on this and blah, blah, blah. And then finally, just two things outside the box. When I had a book published, I wanted a promotional video. So one of my students is a media studies major. I said, hey, would you make a promotional video for me that I can blast on the internet? And the student did, and it was awesome. And we got to work together, and they brought their media studies skills. And I talked about my vision for this video, and I sent it out. And then finally, I had a student who, for their senior thesis project, asked if, I've had two. One asked if they could do a podcast instead of a traditional thesis. And we got that approved. That podcast became that student's calling card after graduation, and they ended up getting an internship at This American Life, and it was a huge springboard. I had another student who asked if they could do their senior thesis as a graphic novel. And we said yes, and we got that passed. They did an amazing graphic novel that ended up getting published and is in bookstores in Seattle, I've been told. So that's the kind of stuff that is possible at good old Pitzer College.
So the other thing I was just going to mention that occurred to me after hearing my colleagues speak, so you think you've been admitted to Pitzer College, or your kid's been admitted to Pitzer College, but that's not quite right. You've been admitted to the Claremont colleges. And a lot of the experience and research possibilities you have go across the colleges, because I was just realizing that actually one of the main things I'm doing this summer is working with a Scripps student that's interested in conspiracy theories. And you have these cross-college opportunities. Typically, the funding would need to come, Pitzer students are funded by Pitzer College, but the actual research opportunities you can get, she's getting funding from Scripps College to work with me as a Pitzer faculty member this summer. And so it's not like they're restricted to solely our campus. You can take advantage of the fact that, there are only 2 philosophers at Pitzer, but there are about 30 philosophers at the colleges as a whole. The Science, Technology, and Society program I'm in is a 5-college program. It has the same major at all 5 colleges, and we all participate in it, and we all collaborate in terms of teaching it. Then neuroscience is a 3-college program because it's based at the Keck Science program. So it's CMC, Scripps, and Pitzer are participating in that. And then philosophy, like I said, is all over the place. So, you have not just, if you're interested in philosophy, for example, you don't just have access to my colleague Ahmed and I, you have access to all 29, 30 philosophers at the colleges. And you can sometimes get funding from Pitzer to then go work with one of these professors at one of the other schools. And we do that for them as well.
That actually leads into my next question, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience. So start thinking about what questions you want to ask the faculty members. You obviously get to teach students from all 5 institutions. Can you speak to some of the qualities and strengths that you see from a Pitzer student?
You guys want to start?
Okay. Yeah, the Pitzer students are the ones that never stop talking.
I will say I had so it's not one of my Pitzer colleagues, but I have a colleague who in philosophy at Pomona and loves to have Pitzer students in their classes because they feel like, they're Pomona students. They're constantly trying to get them to think outside of the box, and they're really good test takers there, and they have a lot of skills, academic skills, but they're trying to get them to open up. And they always say, "Oh, I love Pitzer students because Pitzer students are the ones that are going, what box? Oh." That thing I tripped over a few minutes ago, whatever that was. I've got this other interest that I want to bring up. So yeah, they're more wide-ranging in the thinking, I think, at Pitzer. But I see this because most of my courses, I teach a lot of courses off campus, or I actually teach off campus because I team teach with professors at the other colleges. But given the programs I'm in, typically Pitzer students are the plurality in my classes, but they're usually not the majority. And one of the kind of fun things in my classes is watching all 5 colleges and their students kind of getting together and interacting. And You got the science and engineering kids from Harvey Mudd, and you've got the kind of more government-focused and econ-focused students from CMC, and you got the kids from Pomona who are trying to get out of the box for some reason. So it's fun to see, at least in my classrooms, the kinds of fun interactions between them.
I think I'd agree with all of those things, and I just add that I think Pitzer students are willing to take intellectual risks and not be afraid of the punishment of the grade. So I find that some students are so worried about the grade that they put themselves in a box, and I try really hard to say, like, what if you did something, like, what would bring you joy, or what would be intellectually stimulating for you? And when I frame the work that we're doing in class that way, Pitzer students run with it, which I love. And the other thing I'll say is within Pitzer students, I love organizational studies students because they are also just so curious about the world and how organizations and institutions work. They're curious about their own power and what they can do as change makers. And I think that also extends to Pitzer students generally, that students are very observant and passionate about all of the organizations and institutions that we function in. And they're always willing to engage in ideas about, like, how can we make this better? How can we do things different? How can we, I guess one of the ways that I always frame it is, like, if we were free of the things that we've inherited, how can we create something better and more beautiful and more inclusive and more human-centered? And I think that really resonates with Pitzer students. So generally, teaching is just a lot of fun. Yeah, and each group is so different, and the things that people produce are so different, even if the assignments are exactly the same from one semester to another, which means individual personalities and lived experiences are things that students are not afraid to bring to the classroom.
All right, so who in the audience has our first question? We're recording this for people who can't make it, so I might have to repeat the question or speak to the mic.
Yeah. Can you go into detail more about secular studies? Like, about it? Like, what does it look like?
Okay, well, how much time do we have?
You get your $5 afterwards. I'll meet you at the clock tower. Okay, before I answer that, another thing I just did want to piggyback on the previous. You know, as far as I know, we're one of the only colleges in the nation that requires a community engagement experience course to graduate from Pitzer College. You know, we have a social responsibility praxis requirement. Every Pitzer student that wants to get a degree from Pitzer has to have at least one semester where they are engaging in some type of community involvement, engagement. And I think that tells you a little bit more also about the kind of students that we tend to attract, like Barbara was talking about. You know, our students tend to care about issues of social justice and race and gender and sexuality and class and the environment. It's just, you know, you can read that on our website, and we don't always live up to our ideals, but we have those ideals, and I think they are attractive to a lot of the students that end up coming here. Secular studies. Let me see if I can do it in 1 minute. So the social sciences is about trying to understand human beings, why we do what we do, think what we think, love what we love, or social movements, society, et cetera, et cetera. And so a huge chunk of humanity, obviously, is religious. And so it's really important to understand that, understand religion's role in politics, society, culture, family life, et cetera, et cetera. Well, a growing chunk of humanity now is non-religious of varying shapes and hues. And we've never really had an academic home to study what that looks like, what that means. So secular studies is basically an interdisciplinary analysis of non-religious people, movements, cultures, past and present, and trying to understand the role of secular movements, secular ideologies, and just secular culture and identity as well. Thank you. We're the only college that has a secular studies program. That's correct. So, but that speaks to the innovation that's possible here at Pitzer. You know, Barbara just spoke of the Justice Education Program. We've just started a new data science program. We have the ability at Pitzer, not only the freedom as teachers to teach what we want and how we want, but when we have enough collaboration and colleagues with a similar interest, we can create different field groups, field group Bs, field group As. We can offer different kinds of programs. And so there's, I think, a lot more innovation educationally at Pitzer here just because of the structure of the school than you might find elsewhere. Yeah.
From the last panel, I understand that students can take classes at all the 5Cs. If they take classes at the other colleges, is it a different kind of experience? Like at Pomona, would it be a different feel to the class or CMC than at Pitzer?
I mean, I think the variation is more at the level of the faculty. A philosophy class is different than a cognitive science class, but whether a philosophy class at Pomona is that much different than a philosophy class at Pitzer, I don't know whether that's where the divisions lie. I think we have very different kinds of programs in terms of you can do majors at Pitzer, but if it's a major that's at another college that doesn't that we don't have at Pitzer, you can do, like, for instance, we have a philosophy, politics, and economics is a program that is at both CMC and at Pomona, and you can declare that as an off-campus major and then take some of your courses here, some of your courses there. Although that does point to one of the things, just truth in advertising. You can take courses at other campuses. It's not always easy, depending on the popularity. For example, the Claremont McKenna PPE program is currently closed to off-campus majors because they don't even have enough room in their program for CMC majors, and that's obviously their first clientele. And we also have some restrictions on, everybody tries to keep their students more close to home in their first and second year, and then let people branch out later on. And I think most of the faculty try to satisfy their own home environment first, like make sure that they've got enough room for their students from their own college before they open it up necessarily to other schools. So in principle, you can take courses at all the colleges. And a lot of times, like I said, I don't think it really matters a lot because what you will learn at different colleges and the way in which you learn might be relatively similar. We're all, small liberal arts colleges, but you have that opportunity, and it's one of those things where students, a lot of students do take college campus classes off campus, but it does require them sometimes to be a little more savvy to, establish relationships, go and talk to the faculty at the other school, or contact them and really signal their interest and get and like I said, I'm working with somebody from Scripps. I routinely work with students from the other colleges, but it's usually because they're on their toes and are seeking me out and taking a class with me beforehand and so forth. Yeah.
Can I just add a couple things? Not having taken classes at these other colleges as a student, I can't say, but I do team teach a class with a CMC professor. So it's a kind of opposing viewpoints class. So I sort of fashion myself as the progressive secular professor, and he's the conservative religious professor. And we read books by people who have been deplatformed or canceled or stopped from speaking. It's kind of a free speech on university campus approach, left and right. And it's at CMC. And so we get a lot of CMC students, and he's CMC, and I do feel like there's a big difference. I think each school does have its own vibe, its own personality. I mean, I agree with Brian that obviously it's class specific and discipline specific, but yeah, I do think there's a difference. And then finally, I hate to say this in Santiago, but I am currently working as associate dean, and I just want to again be clear. Yes, in theory, you can take classes at all the 5Cs. It doesn't always work out that way. It depends on the major. It depends on how popular, it depends on a lot of things. So I'll just say this, like computer science, for example, the popularity is through the roof. Harvey Mudd has very clear restrictions. They have a lottery on who can take their computer science classes outside of Mudd. So if you're planning to come to Pitzer and do computer science at Harvey Mudd, if you get the lottery, great. If you don't get the lottery, you're not taking classes at computer science at Harvey Mudd. Just have to say that as associate dean.
Of course, I could also point out I have two former students that are working. I think one's at Bandcamp and the other was at Facebook. They were philosophy majors. So you don't have to do CS in order to go on to do CS in your life.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect setup for my question. We're from Silicon Valley. We have a lot of CS majors, a lot of well-trained computer scientists in Silicon Valley, very few of which have ever taken a class in epistemology or ethics or cognitive science. To what degree is that encouraged? Because the absence of that is causing some major issues.
Yeah, so another course that I teach, team teaching it with a a psychologist, David Moore, one of our colleagues here at Pitzer. It's called Minds and Machines. And partly it's in response to the kind of demand for computer science courses, because we want to be a good sister college to our colleagues at Harvey Mudd, and said, well, we want to make space for students to go take their courses. What can we offer that can help them? And it turns out at Harvey Mudd, students need humanities courses, and they want humanities courses connected to what they're interested in studying. So we teach this course on mind and machines, and we set aside a number of seats for computer science majors. Often they're Harvey Mudd students. But in part, it's that kind of idea to get students that are, their minds are set. They're going to be computer science people once they graduate, and expose them to things outside. Where does what they're interested in, what happens when it rubs up against the world? All right, let's talk about fairness in algorithms. Let's talk about transparency of algorithms, and the ways that algorithms get used to oppress certain groups. And guess what? They're often the same groups that get oppressed a variety of other institutions in our culture. So recognizing how those kinds of issues play out. But I think as I was saying before, you don't have to be a computer science major. I mean, at least a number of the people I know in the tech world are like, we can teach you the code, right? And what we can't always teach you is what you're going to be coding about. And it's kind of a different thing, but I remember a couple of years ago, we had a student who really wanted to do screenwriting, and all they wanted to do was do screenwriting, in the sense like that's all the courses they wanted to take were courses on screenwriting and we found we got a couple of courses at the colleges, and the student was very frustrated, and because it's only a certain number of courses in screenwriting they could take. And I remember having these conversations with them. It's like, but what's your screenplay going to be about? I mean, maybe you want to learn something else. Maybe you want to learn about secularity. Maybe you want to learn about authoritarianism, in order that your screenplay will have a topic, right? So it's I have to say, I don't think I was completely successful with this student, but they were so set on, they just wanted writing courses. But saying the same sort of thing to computer science majors, it's like, coding is one thing, and there's a lot of things you can do to learn about coding. But if you're, for instance, my student who's at band camp, right? They obviously had an interest in music, right? So it's like, yeah, they can code, but then they need to know something about the music world in order to be able to have something to connect their coding to the things that they're doing.
Wow, that was really, really wonderful conversation. I think it's one we should all think about all the time, the content of the coding. So given what I'm sure this room is full of parents of students or students with lots of different ideas and energies coming out of high school, and you clearly present a range of fascinating interdisciplinary opportunities on top of all of the wonderful things that the students introduced us to before. So my question is, how do you help guide students so that they can find the best sort of pathway for themselves? I mean, we heard in the earlier student panel that students can take up to, I believe, their junior year to declare their majors. But sort of, could you talk a little bit about your academic counseling programs, or peer mentors, or whoever it is helps our students discern what they should be getting out of the college experience? Thanks so much.
That's a great question. All the questions have been really, really excellent. So we have if you come to Pitzer, you have to take a first year seminar in your fall semester of your first year, and your first year seminar professor is your academic advisor until you declare your major. And you can keep that advisor throughout your career if you'd like. You don't have to drop them once you choose your major. And the first year seminar professor, so basically you get to go over the courses that you want to take with your professor, and talk about not just like the technical aspects of like how to choose classes, but what are you interested in, right? What are your dreams for yourself? And those conversations, your professor engages with you in those conversations with an eye to trying to do the very thing that we were just talking about, which is have an eye to the big picture, have an eye to the passions that you bring and the kinds of interests that are emerging for you, and thinking about yourself as a person who is transforming and being transformed and evolving, rather than thinking about and maybe in conjunction with thinking about like the technical skills or the particular disciplinary knowledge that you want. So the wonderful thing about Pitzer is You don't have to declare your major until the middle of your first semester of your junior year, unless you're going to travel, study abroad, then you have to do it a semester earlier. And so we try to encourage students to have, to explore broadly what the promise of a liberal arts education is. I have had students, like Brian mentioned, who just wanted to study psychology from day one and only wanted to take psychology classes. And I struggled really mightily with that particular student to encourage them, like, to be a good professional, to be a good human being. Actually, to do those things requires a very broad understanding of human relationships and values and ethics. And then one of the things I always like to highlight is when I first started teaching here, I had a student who was a dance major and took a course with me. And she was also pre-med. And she went to medical school, not as a biologist or a chemist, but as a dancer, right? And you just think about, like, if you think about, I don't know, I feel like for myself, what Pitzer College has really helped me emphasize in my teaching and in my advising is that we are all whole complicated human beings, right? And there's many sides to us, and it's not just that one disciplinary set of knowledge or that one bit of technical skill that we have that actually is, those are things that get you ahead, but other things like your interpersonal skills, your passions beyond the narrow specifics of what it is that you say is your expertise, those are the things that open up the world for you and draw people to you. And I think our academic advisors do a great job of encouraging students to think about education in that kind of more comprehensive way.
Yeah, just quickly also structurally, every student every semester is expected to meet with their advisor to approve their schedule for the next semester. So that's a check-in you're having every semester, and it really helps develop that relationship. So if you're at a massive, huge public university, you don't have, you just go online, pick your classes, whatever. But here at Pitzer, you have one or more advisors that you see regularly and are, at least once a semester, if not more, where those conversations can happen. And I would say, just for me personally, I ask a lot of whys. So what's happening, what I've noticed, I've been here since 1998, is I would say in the last 4 or 5 or 6 years, and it's anecdotal, but I do think there is evidence to this, but I don't know. I'm getting more and more students who their first year, they come into my office and they say, I want to be a double major in econ and, psychology. And I'm like, wait, what year are you? Well, I'm first year. And I'm like, and why do you want a double major? And just that question changes. And it's like, they're like, why are you double majoring? What's going on here? You have 32 classes. You really want to shackle yourself to 2 required major? I just ask a lot of why questions. And if they have good answers, great. But often it causes them to be a bit more reflective. And I try to de-escalate the pressure and say, you don't have to, why are you doing this? And why would you want to do that? And, I ask a lot of why questions and hope that helps. It doesn't always work, but sometimes.
Reminder that whatever you listed on the Common App doesn't matter. That academic interest is no longer. You're at a
Can I
clean
just
slate.
add one more thing real quick? Not only do you get to meet with your advisor multiple times, you can meet with your advisor anytime you want. So we always say, please come to office hours. And you don't even have to have a question. You could just say, I want to talk about this particular thing. Exactly. And then the other great thing about coming to a liberal arts college like Pitzer is we know each other. So if you're interested in something and you're like, I don't know who to talk to, we could just call someone or send an email introducing you. And that usually I feel like it's the relationships, right, and the connections that you get when you're here. That also matters.
Thank you so much for all of the great discussions. My question is about diversity. And then I know diversity is on all of our checklists these days. I work in academia too, I want to have diversity numbers and all of that. But I want to get a good sense of it among the faculty themselves. Are the voices equal? Neurodiversity among the students, race, ethnicity diversity. Just get a sense of really working on it to make everybody belong in the community.
Along with like able-bodied people or neurodivergency again, LGBT, different races. I know there's like Latinx, different communities, but are there like Middle Eastern, I'm assuming Asian, Native American, different stuff like that? I'm not asking you to be perfect or anything. I'm just wondering in general.
Jump in.
You can start.
Okay.
Oh.
Mr. Associate Dean.
I would say on that front, we can always be doing better. I just want to start there. Like, we have, I think on the good side, we have these ideals and these values that are structured in the way we do job searches, in the way we imagine our curriculum, in the way we comprise our field groups, in the ways we have different offices attuned to different student needs and to different affinity groups, be they racial, ethnic, sex, gender, religious, or intersecting, hopefully, and the way we partner with communities. So I think we have institutional values and goals that I think are amazing and I think are unique. As far as I know, we're one of the only schools in the United States that has students that sit on hiring committees, hiring for tenure track positions. We have 2 students who have an equal vote as a faculty member or a dean. We have strong diversity committees that are, consistent. We have strong offices whose jobs are there to promote diversity, equity, inclusion. But again, it's a striving. And so I would just say that our vision is excellent, and we revisit that a lot, and we discuss a lot. But I think, it's especially me as a white, talking as a white guy, like what I experience is going to be different from what my colleagues who may be women or of color or women of color, like they come to me and they tell me these stories. So yeah, it's not great and it could be better. And I'll just kind of stop there.
So this is not an easy question to answer, and I really appreciate it as well. So we know that Pitzer and the Claremont colleges are predominantly white institutions, right? So that is a fact. I think, because students are on committees, they're on every committee, including hiring committees, because students can start their own organizations, and we have a student identity board president, we have identity, we have affinity groups. Students are often at the forefront of pushing for and encouraging and helping alongside faculty supporting and allyship students to make our institution live up to those wonderful values that we have. I know of cases where students feel tired and they feel like the burden is on the students to change the institution. I do know that Pitzer has, I was on diversity committee last year. I was the chair of diversity committee. We worked really hard to change policies to make, to ensure greater celebration of the diversity work and the efforts that faculty have engaged in their classes through their promotion process. But like Phil said, we still have a lot of work to do. And one thing I think we have to think about at Pitzer is, we are a pretty non-hierarchical place. And that's very special also about Pitzer. We don't have department chairs and these like hierarchies that you have to go up to have change. So that means that institutional change is in some ways easier. And students vote on college council on changes to curriculum and changes to policies. So those are all wonderful things. But when you don't have the institutional structure and the pathway, sometimes then it's hard to know which pathway to take. And that also is a kind of institutional learning that students, it can be a steep learning curve. Often our students who come from historically underrepresented or minoritized, marginalized groups, they find allyship with particular professors who sometimes are from those identity groups. And that is a plus and a negative as well, because the relationships are strong and important. But again, it's not clear that there is consistent institutional support. So I wish that I had an easy answer to that really good question. There are both sides within the context of our predominantly white institution. We are doing many different things and trying things, and the decentered nature of our institution allows us to engage in innovation. But like Phil said, we still have a lot of work to do.
And I think the only thing I would add to that as a cis white straight male myself, that what we don't want to be is a situation where we put a burden on our faculty of color and our staff of color and our students of color to do that work. And so one of the things that, speaking for myself personally, I try to bring those issues into class exactly so that it isn't just the non-white faculty talking about race. So in that knowledge, mind, and existence class, I typically do a section on the metaphysics of race so that we can think through race and work through that. I mentioned in the Minds of Machine course, we talk about how different types of people get affected by the technology that we have, and feminist critiques of science are something that play a big role. And I do that at least explicitly so that these ideas are not only coming out of the mouths of faculty of color, right? That all the faculty need to engage with that. And I don't think I'm alone in that, but that is one of the ways in which we're at least trying to do better. But it is a good question.
Can I add one more thing? Sorry, I keep talking. But so I'm a faculty co-director of the Center for Teaching and Learning, and one of our underlying themes is anti-racist pedagogy. So we put on workshops for faculty on how to engage in anti-oppression, anti-racist teaching. And then, I mentioned that I teach organizational theory, which is a core course in the org studies major. And I used to have like a section on race or a section on gender. And then in consultation with my students, every semester I ask them, what would you change? And so now it's not like that anymore. Now I have authors of color, from intersectionality, authors and scholars and activists from, neurodivergent backgrounds, all kinds of things. Those are the authors and the sources that we use throughout the semester in conjunction with like more traditional org theory things. So it's embedded and it becomes naturalized as part of the curriculum. And I know a lot of faculty are moving in that direction or have already moved in that direction.
I just want to add, from the admission standpoint, your whole life won't be on campus, and we're in greater Los Angeles. So I think the diversity around us is not a lot of liberal arts colleges can claim that.
Yeah, they're not in the cornfield in Iowa or Vermont.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay, so I have two questions. One of them is a yes or no question. Does it cost more to take a class at another college versus this one? And what kind of like medical support do you give to students that aren't like able-bodied or are neurodivergent? That's my question. Thank you.
Are you asking if it's more expensive to go here and one of the other 5 Cs or here versus a Cal State, or just to be? Somewhere else in the Claremont colleges? Yeah, no, you're just paying your Pitzer tuition and you don't pay anything to take classes at any of the other 5 Cs. Yeah, no, that's really a great question. And then in terms of your second question, I don't want to give you misinformation. It's not my area of expertise. Someone from the Office of Student Affairs, that's their purview. Working with students with healthcare needs, neurodivergent needs, anything along those lines. So I mostly can speak to specifically academic affairs. Although I can say from what I gather and the people I work with, there's tremendous support. Our Office of Student Affairs is amazing and is always doing their best, that I can tell, to support the various and diverse needs of our students, be they around mental health, physical health, emotional well-being, addiction issues, you name it. So, but again, it's not my area, so I can't like go down the list of bullet points of this, and this.
I think another principle that a lot of faculty have embraced is universal design for learning, which is basically giving students a choice in the assessments and the projects that they can work on. So sometimes I tell students, like, do you have capacity to challenge yourself this semester and to stretch? Or do you want to choose a way of practicing the knowledge and demonstrating mastery of the knowledge using a format that you are already comfortable with? And I think universal design for learning is important because it gives students options, right? So that they are in control of your own education. It also takes into account things like neurodivergence, right? Or disability status, or different things that your own lived experiences, and what it is that what it means to learn in what is the best, most conducive environment for your own learning. And it exposes students to a variety of modes or modalities of how to gain knowledge and how to express your expertise. So then those differences that in many contexts seem strange or unusual actually then become normal. I can't also feel I can't speak so much to institutional support, but we do have a Monsoor Counseling Center. We have a health center. Those are 5C resources. We have an amazing Office of Student Affairs. And every semester we get notes about students who have accommodations. When I get those notes, I sit down with my students and I say, how can we ensure that you can thrive this semester? There are many different supports that you can tap into, but I think building on some things that were said earlier, a lot of it is, having open communication with your professor and, letting your professor know that there's a combination of self-advocacy, which I think Brian had talked about, and also being open to having a relationship with your professor that, you feel comfortable sharing those kinds of things also.
And I think I'll also just point out that, mental health has been a struggle. It's always a struggle, but it's been particularly bad the last couple of years for reasons that we're all aware of, and why we're all wearing masks. And I know that we've struggled to keep up. I mean, there's been, a large amount of demand, particularly on our Monsoor Center, which has meant that in some cases there have been long wait times to get to see somebody and to get things set up. And I think it's just in this sense, we're no different from the rest of the world. Everybody is struggling with mental health right now and getting mental health services out there. But we're doing our best, but it is another one of those areas where I think, as we were saying before about diversity, I think it is an area where we could do better, and we're trying to keep up.
I appreciate your frankness in all the answers you've given so far. And my question was based on study abroad programs. I wondered if you could talk about that. Do students are they able to study abroad, or is there a lot of students trying to study abroad and they're not able to get those opportunities? And how many students kind of study abroad?
Oh, thank you so much. Sorry. So this is something I love to talk about. Prior to COVID, about 70% of our students went abroad, usually their junior year. But the one thing I want to talk to you about is most colleges and universities, the model is go abroad, go live in a dorm somewhere, go somewhere else and take some classes. We at Pitzer have an amazing study abroad program where we partner with institutions in, I think, 7 different countries on different continents, where it's a Pitzer program. We have employees in Ecuador, right? I'm trying to think, in Costa Rica, Vietnam, Nepal, that's the biggie I was thinking of. Do we still have in Africa in the 3? So we have different programs where we have employees that work for Pitzer that put our students in the communities there, so they are living with host families. They're not just in a dorm with kids from Australia or something like. Sorry, nothing against Australia, but I'm just thinking of an Anglophone country. They are living in families and taking classes, doing community engaged work. I think it's an amazing model. Now, not all our students have to do one of those, I believe, 7 programs. You can take a different program, and we have options all over the world. But those Pitzer programs are amazing. They're much more immersive. They're much more culturally attuned. And you are really getting a different kind of exchange experience than if you just go to a dorm in Paris and hang out with a bunch of Americans. No. COVID's messed up everything. But, once we get back to normal, if we get back to normal, no, the Pitzer programs, you're good to go. The only time it's difficult, the only time I've heard any problems is a few students that want to go to special places where we don't have a program, and they have to petition and make a case, and that can be a little bit sometimes difficult. But it's rare. It's 2% of. Did I get it right? You guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do have. I mean, so part of the struggle of advising students is, they want to go to the cities they've heard of, right? They want to go to London, they want to go to Paris, they want to go to, Rome. And our programs are intentionally placed outside of those areas. Like we do have a program in Italy, but it's in Parma. It's in the farm country. And like I said, for us, it's intentional because we want to get them out. We want to get them into the parts of the country where the language is spoken, that there isn't a lot of tourism necessarily, that then becomes a crutch that allows you to kind of get away with not necessarily learning the language and not having to deal with it. We do a lot of homestays as part of our programs. And the struggle we run into sometimes is the students that are like, no, I definitely want to go to Paris. And it's like, well, that might be a little difficult. We can get you to a Francophone speaking country, and we can, and there are programs that we are connected to. But again, I think it's flexibility is important, being able to recognize that what's your real goal here? Is it just, are you there to get educated, or do you just want to have a really fun time in Sydney or, someplace like that, which again, I spent a lot of time in Sydney. I've spent sabbaticals there, but it's not always the most culturally challenging experience, one might say.
I can add, I've never had a student who wanted to study abroad not be able to do it.
Yeah.
And since I've been here. And I've been to the Costa Rica program for a week. I spent a week in Ecuador, and I got to spend 10 days in Nepal. And I got to see the host families, and I got to even take language lessons in this immersive environment and do the cultural activities that students do. And it is wonderful, really.
I'll just add, like, we opened the new program in Vietnam. I went, it's in Hue, and met our colleagues there who also then come here each year to teach a Vietnamese language immersion program before the students go to Hue. It's an incredible program, and it feels like it's not just sending them off somewhere. We know those are our colleagues. Tam and Kong are our colleagues, and they are there on the ground partnering with communities. I'll agree with Barbara. I've never had a student couldn't go abroad unless it was some really weird program.
And we also have a structural problem, which is one of the things that came up with COVID. We need a significant number of our students to go abroad. We're planning for the fact that a significant number, we don't have enough dorm rooms on campus for all the students to stay here. We actually need them to go abroad because that's how our program, we're one of the colleges in the country that, have international engagement as one of our features. And that's kind of baked in even at the level of how many dorm rooms we have. So, we made it work, but we do, we rely upon the fact that we want a significant number of our students to go abroad and have that experience and to take courses outside of the Claremont bubble.
There will be somebody from international programs and study abroad at our resource fair, which is our next session.
Hi. Can you speak to the alumni network, the depth and breadth? Is it Pitzer specifically, or do you guys share with the whole network? You guys are kind of a newer school, so you, by definition, couldn't have as many alumni. What that question?
I mean, again, don't know how well we can speak to it just because that's not our, it's not part of the academic program per se. I will say that the two things that are on my schedule for this month is this meeting, and then I'm also speaking at our alumni event in what I think it's the 29th and 30th. And I will say that, certainly there is a kind of focus on Pitzer, although we do coordinate with the other colleges to kind of have the alumni weekend sometimes at the same weekend. But I know that some of the intercollegiate programs that I work with, the STS program is interested in all of our alumni from all of the colleges because we all work with all of them. And I certainly know that students, I seem to spend a lot of time, or not a lot of time, but I spend a significant amount of time connecting my current students with students that were, that have graduated earlier, and that I can, kind of get them a leg up, at least in the sense of being able to, engage with somebody like, oh yeah, this person majored in philosophy or majored in neuroscience, and they're now in graduate school at this place. Maybe you can chat with them and talk about their experience and what they wish they had done at the Claremont colleges that they didn't do, or the thing they thought was the most useful, and have those kinds of conversations.
quickly, no, we really don't share alumni with Pomona, CMC. That's their own purview. I think that's one area where, I mean, Pomona alums and Pomona, that's a different ballgame. But I will say that we have, yes, we're a newer school, which means we have a smaller pool, but our career services office works really closely with our alums, particularly with career placements. So, for example, setting up internships, shadowing. So if a student right now at Pitzer is interested in a certain career, they go to career services. Oh, we have an alum who works at this company. They'd love to have you shadow them for a week. So our alums are very proud. They're proud sage hens. They're proud of Pitzer and they want to help. So my experience, we have alum events all over the country. I have spoken at alum events in Portland, I think in DC, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, the people that come, it's multi-generations. I do think there's a strong community there. So it's not as deep and as wide as, you know, Wellesley or something, but it's there and it's growing and it's strong and I'm really proud of it.
I'll just add, because I'm a Pomona alum, I do get invited to 5 college alumni events in different cities. So like San Francisco will have a 5 college happy hour because half of your friends are from the other colleges by the time you graduate. We only have time for one last question.
Thank you. I was wondering, for a student that decides to declare their major in the second semester of their junior year, what's it like trying to fulfill the requirements for that major at that point?
So they really ought to have declared before that. I mean, that's like the final. Basically, there's a point at which you're not allowed to register anymore if you don't have a major on file, right? So there's a point, you know, that's the final cutoff. It's like, okay, you don't have to declare a major, but you can't take any more courses until and you can't sign up for any more courses until you show us you have a plan. And I mean, I think it's much more standard. I think I would guess that 80% of the students declare their major somewhere in their sophomore year. And the one place that we were mentioning, one of the reasons why junior year it's an issue is that you can't go abroad without already having a major declared. We don't want you to be trying to figure out your classes. You can't meet with your professor if you're in Botswana, right? It's like, so, or, you know, you can maybe Zoom with them. So one of our rules is we try to get you to make sure you have your major declared before you leave. But typically, and what the major declaration process is, it's basically you put together a roadmap of like, here's what I've got left to do. Here's what I've already done. Here's my roadmap to getting it done. And the idea is we don't sign off on it until there is a roadmap. And you know, if you wait too long, the roadmap might be, yeah, every single one of my courses are meeting some requirement because I've put it off a little bit too long. But often it's not the case. I mean, one of the nice things I would say about Pitzer, or I don't know if it's nice, but it's one of the features is that we have relatively few requirements. You have the first year seminar. The first year seminar is really the only course that in some sense you don't have a lot of control over, in the sense that you will be asked to, you know, here's the list of courses, rank order your interest in them, and we do our best to get you into one of your top choices. But that's really the only one where we tell you, you know, you're going to take this particular course. And sorry, this is the one you're taking. And hopefully it should be on the list of the ones that you were interested in. But then beyond that, you get to pick your major, right? And your major is only, you know, majors are anywhere from maybe 8 to 14 courses. You need 32 courses total. So it's, you know, even the most stringent major is only going to be half of the classes you take. And then you have the various distribution requirements, like you got to take at least 2 humanities. What humanities? Any humanities. Just take 2 humanities. You need a natural science course. Which one? Again, up to you. Which one do you want to take? You need 2 social and behavioral sciences. Again, there's a whole bunch. Pick the 2 that you want. And then you've got the courses in your major. And then we have a couple of other, we have requirements in, you have to do at least one intercultural understanding course that's designated as a kind of a local course, right? And, you know, intercultural understanding within the American domestic context, and also an intercultural understanding in a global context. So you have to take one course in both of those. We already mentioned, Phil already mentioned a social responsibility praxis course, which has got some type of community engagement involved in it. And the last one is a social justice theory course, where you kind of theoretically think through the aspects of social justice in our culture. But again, there's a list of 15 courses for each of those. And what I find is, at least, it doesn't usually end up being a problem, because the students have taken a bunch of stuff and we can sit down and go like, oh yeah, you've done that, you've done that, you've done that. And it's like, okay, you still need a natural science course, so let's figure out how we can do that. You need also one math oriented course, a quantitative reasoning course. It could be statistics, it could be math, it could be logic, actually. So a lot of my philosophy majors get their quantitative reasoning course by doing math without numbers, which is what we call logic. So it ends up not being a big, I mean, you really have to work hard to end up in your junior year and not be able to, in my 20 years here, I've never had somebody who was not able to put together a major. This never happens, but hopefully it's because you get on students to kind of start focusing earlier on it and find out that, we're pretty diverse in terms of the kinds of things that you can do to fulfill the major.
All right. Well, I want to thank our panelists for their time today.